In a modest cafe, a lonely man stares at a cake with a lit candle surrounded by silence. Months earlier, he had faked his own downfall to discover who would love him without money or status. But what he found was something he never expected: true affection from strangers. The sun had not yet risen when Raphael Nightingale awoke. His head throbbed, his heavy eyes trying to identify where he was. The smell of alcohol and medicine filled his nostrils as a sharp pain shot through his body. It wasn't his penthouse in Malibu. It wasn't his king-size bed imported from Italy. It was a hospital room. "Mr. Nightingale, it's good that you're awake." The nurse in an immaculate uniform efficiently adjusted his IV drip. "You suffered a serious accident on Interstate 5. Your car rolled over several times. It's a miracle you survived." Raphael tried to speak, but his voice came out hoarse, almost inaudible. His last mental record was driving his Porsche after closing a multi-million-dollar deal in New York City. He was returning to Los Angeles when the storm began. "How long have I been here?" he finally managed to ask. 3 days, sir." "You were in an induced coma." 3 days. His mind began to calculate who should be worried. Camilla, his fiancée, would certainly be desperate. Edward, his brother and business partner, probably cancelled all meetings. His friends, those with whom he shared champagne at exclusive parties in the Hamptons, must already be organizing a celebration for his recovery. "Has anyone visited me?" he asked, trying to get more comfortable on the pillows. The nurse hesitated. That small silence said more than any words. "Yes, sir. Your financial advisor has been here every day. He brought some documents for you to sign as soon as you woke up." Raphael frowned. "Only him?" "Well, your lawyer also came, and your accountant. They talked a lot with the doctors about your life insurance, a knot formed in the businessman's throat, and my fiancé." "My brother?" The nurse nervously fiddled with the equipment. "Your fiancé sent flowers. They're over there." She pointed to a discreet arrangement in the corner. "And your brother called asking about your condition. He mentioned something about company shares that need your signature." Raphael closed his eyes. 42 years of life, a fortune estimated in billions, companies on 3 continents, and no one, absolutely no one, showed up out of genuine concern. In the days that followed, the pattern continued. Camilla appeared only once, impeccably dressed, perfumed, but visibly uncomfortable with the hospital environment. She stayed for exactly 20 minutes, spoke about the wedding preparations she was organizing, and left in a hurry for an appointment. Edward sent more documents but did not appear in person. The "get well soon" messages he received were always accompanied by questions about business. His friends? Absolute silence. It was during one early morning, when the pain from his injuries seemed less than the pain of revelation, that Raphael had an idea. He was typing on his cell phone, checking news about his companies, when an article caught his attention. "Billionaire loses everything after partner's fraud." The story told of an American businessman who saw his empire crumble overnight. What if that happened to me? Raphael thought. Who would stand by my side? The idea grew like a virus in his mind. What if he pretended to have lost everything? What if he disappeared from the radar, started from scratch, without the weight of the Nightingale surname, without the number of zeros in his bank account? The next morning, he called only 2 people he fully trusted: Mrs. Zelda, his housekeeper for over 20 years, and Dr. Augustus, his personal doctor who had been with him since before his first million. "What you're planning is madness, Mr. Raphael," Mrs. Zelda said, with the frankness that only years of living together allowed. "Perhaps it is, Zelda, but I need to know. I need to find out who truly cares about me, not my money." Dr. Augustus shook his head, worried. "Your body is still recovering. Your spine was affected. You'll need intensive physical therapy. This isn't the time for this kind of social experiment." Raphael smiled bitterly. "And what time would be better, doctor? When I'm 50, 60? When I realize I've wasted my entire life surrounded by people who only want my money?" The doctor sighed, defeated by his patient's determination. "I want you to prepare everything. We'll spread the word that I had severe neurological complications, that I lost mobility in my legs, and simultaneously, we'll plant news about disastrous investments, lawsuits against my companies." "You're going to lie to your family?" Zelda asked, visibly uncomfortable. "I'm going to find out if I have a family." "Zelda, Thus, while physically recovering, Raphael Nightingale orchestrated his own social disappearance. Dr. Augustus prepared false medical reports about his condition. A trusted lawyer began spreading rumors about billions in debt, tax investigations, and companies on the verge of bankruptcy. The reaction was immediate. Camilla cancelled the wedding with a quick call. Claiming she wasn't prepared to take care of an invalid, Edward appeared at the hospital, not to comfort his brother, but to demand the transfer of his shares before everything went down the drain. His friends? Absolute silence. In the solitude of the hospital room, Raphael watched the New York City skyscrapers from the window. Ironically, now that everyone believed he had lost everything, he could finally see clearly. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Continuing. The transition from the penthouse triplex in Malibu to a small apartment in the Queens borough of Los Angeles was less traumatic than Raphael imagined. With the help of Mrs. Zelda and Dr. Augustus, he chose a simple place in the Queens neighborhood. A two-bedroom without an elevator, on the third floor of a building without a doorman. The wheelchair he now used, part of the act, made everything more challenging. Mr. Raphael, are you sure about this? This place isn't even a third the size of your closet, Mrs. Zelda commented, as she helped organize the few clothes they brought, all carefully selected to look like someone with limited resources. I am Zelda, and from now on I'm just Raphael Stone. The Nightingale surname stayed behind with everything it represented. The plan was perfect in its simplicity. To the world, billionaire Raphael Nightingale was reclusive after losing mobility in his legs, while his companies faced lawsuits and investigations. Simultaneously, a man named Raphael Stone, paraplegic after an accident, rented a modest apartment in Queens to start his life over. Dr. Augustus visited weekly to monitor Raphael's real recovery and help with the paraplegia charade. "Though you won't have to pretend for long," the doctor explained. "With physical therapy, you'll soon be walking normally again. We can say it was a medical miracle." "How long do you think it will take me to walk normally?" "A few months, perhaps. Your spine was indeed affected, just not to the point of causing permanent paraplegia." Mrs. Zelda came twice a week, disguised as a simple cleaner. She was the only constant connection to his past. Days dragged on with an unfamiliar slowness for someone accustomed to packed schedules and multi-million-dollar decisions. Raphael learned to cook by watching internet videos, using a sputtering stove and a noisy refrigerator. He learned to wash his own clothes, to shop counting pennies, to use public transportation. But it was the social invisibility that impacted him most. In cafes, no one recognized him. On sidewalks, people avoided the wheelchair as if avoiding any obstacle, rarely looking at the man sitting in it. In bank lines, he was treated with impatience. In stores, with suspicion. The contrast with his previous life was stark. Before, doors opened automatically. Smiles appeared spontaneously. Everyone knew his name. Now he was just another face in the crowd, and not even a privileged one at that. So this is how the world really works, he thought, as he observed people's behavior. The experience was proving more revealing than he had imagined. After a month, he decided to check the impact of his disappearance. He created fake social media profiles and searched for news about Raphael Nightingale. He found some articles speculating about his bankruptcy, others mentioning he was reclusive due to health problems. Camilla, his ex-fiancée, already appeared in photos with a real estate magnate. Edward gave interviews talking about how he was restructuring the family business. No one seemed to miss him as a person. It was then that Raphael began frequenting a small coffee shop near his apartment. The Corner Cafe, as its name suggested, was on the corner of the main street in Queens. It didn't have the sophistication of the establishments he used to frequent, but the coffee was surprisingly good, and the cozy atmosphere gave him some comfort. "Good morning." The usual. The attendant, a woman of about 35 with curly hair tied in a makeshift bun and expressive brown eyes, already knew his order after only a few visits. "Good morning, Louisa." "Yes, the usual." Raphael smiled, appreciating this small recognition. Louisa Spencer worked tirelessly. Raphael discreetly watched her, noticing how she served customers efficiently, cleaned tables between orders, and still found time to chat with regulars. Sometimes a little girl would appear after school, her daughter Sophia, 8 years old, a child with curious eyes and an easy smile, who drew pictures while her mother finished her shift. "Where are you from?" Sophia asked one afternoon, unexpectedly approaching Raphael's table. Caught off guard, he hesitated. "I used to live in Malibu. And why are you in a wheelchair?" Childlike frankness had no filters. "Sophia, don't be indiscreet," Louisa reprimanded, approaching quickly. "It's okay," Raphael smiled. "I was in a car accident. But I'm getting better, you know. One day I'll get out of this chair." "That's cool. I'll draw you walking then." The girl returned to her table, enthusiastic about her new artistic mission. Louisa looked at Raphael with a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. "I'm sorry." "She's very curious. No need to apologize. Her sincerity is refreshing." That small exchange marked the beginning of a routine. Raphael began frequenting the corner cafe every day, always at the same time. Gradually, brief conversations with Louisa turned into longer dialogues. He discovered she was a single mother who had moved from the South to Los Angeles in search of opportunities and who worked 2 jobs to support her daughter. What Raphael didn't tell her was who he really was. He only said he worked in finance, that he had lost everything after the accident, and that he was starting over, a half-truth that weighed on his conscience more and more as his admiration for Louisa grew. In his apartment at night, Raphael reflected on the unexpected turn his life was taking. The experience that began as an attempt to uncover the falseness of the people around him was revealing something different, the authenticity of people he would never have had contact with in his previous life. Week before his 43rd birthday, Raphael received a call from Mrs. Zelda. "Your brother sold the family mansion in the Hamptons. He said it was to pay off your debts. Your name is being dragged through the mud in the financial market, Mr. Raphael. And the press? Has anyone asked about me? Where I am? How I am?" Mrs. Zelda's silence was deafening. "I see." Raphael hung up, looking out the window at the sunset painting the Los Angeles suburban sky. In less than 6 months, it was as if he had never existed to those people. As if years of companionship, parties, meetings, trips were just commercial transactions that, once concluded, left no emotional traces. His birthday would be in a week. For the first time in his adult life, there would be no party on a yacht, no imported champagne, no expensive gifts from people who barely knew him. There would only be him alone, in a small apartment in a working-class neighborhood of Los Angeles, with an emotional wound greater than any luxury he had ever possessed. On the morning of his birthday, Raphael woke up earlier than usual. The Queen's sky was still dark, with a few points of starlight resisting the dawn. 43 years old, an age that, in his original plans, would find him expanding businesses in Asia. Perhaps with an heir on the way, definitely with a few more billions accumulated. Never in his most absurd daydreams had he imagined spending this date alone in a modest apartment, faking a disability that was already beginning to improve. His legs responded better and better to physical therapy. Dr. Augustus was optimistic that in a few weeks he could start taking steps with the aid of crutches. But Raphael kept the wheelchair as part of his disguise, as an element of his new identity. After a simple breakfast, he decided not to spend the whole day dwelling on the past. He would go to the corner cafe, order something special for himself. Small celebrations, he had learned, had their value. The cafe was busier than usual for a Tuesday. Raphael found a table in the corner near the window. Louisa spotted him and waved discreetly as she finished serving other customers. "Good morning. The usual?" she asked, finally approaching with her usual smile. "Actually, today I'd like something different. Do you have any cake?" Louisa raised her eyebrows, surprised by the unusual request. "We have carrot cake with chocolate and cornmeal cake with guava paste. Which do you prefer?" "So, the carrot one, please. And could you bring a candle if you have one?" Louisa's eyes lit up with understanding. "Is it your birthday today?" Raphael nodded, a little embarrassed. 43. Wait here." She quickly moved away, disappearing into the cafe kitchen. A few minutes later, to Raphael's surprise, Louisa returned not just with a slice of cake, but with a small whole cake, a candle carefully positioned in the center. "You didn't have to, Louisa. A slice would have been enough." "A birthday deserves a whole cake." She placed the sweet in front of him. I made this last night. I was going to put it up for sale today, but I'd rather it be your gift." The unexpected kindness caught him off guard. How long had it been since someone had given him something without expecting anything in return? "Thank you," was all he could say, a knot forming in his throat. "I'll get some coffee to go with it," Louisa said, moving away again. Raphael looked at the small cake in front of him. It was nothing compared to the extravagances of his previous parties, but somehow it seemed infinitely more significant. He took the lighter from his pocket and lit the candle, watching the small flame dance. It was at that moment that he felt a presence beside him. Sophia, Louisa's daughter, looked curiously at the cake. "Is it your birthday?" the girl asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It is," Raphael replied with a smile. "Can I sing happy birthday to you? Mom says no one should blow out candles alone." Before Raphael could answer, Sophia had already started singing, her childlike voice clear and enthusiastic. Louisa, returning with the coffee, joined her daughter in the song. Some nearby customers also joined in, creating an unexpected collective moment. When the song ended, everyone applauded. "Make a wish and blow," Sophia instructed. Raphael closed his eyes for a moment. What could he wish for? His empire back, his complete health, his old life. Surprisingly, none of that seemed important at that instant. He opened his eyes, looked at the smiling girl and at Louisa, who watched the scene with tenderness and made his silent wish. Then he blew out the candle. Sophia clapped enthusiastically. "What did you wish for?" "Sophia, you don't ask that," Louisa gently reprimanded her. "If he tells, it won't come true." "It's okay," Raphael said, cutting a slice of the cake. "Do you want to share it with me?" That simple gesture marked a turning point in his life. After that day, Raphael began frequenting the cafe not only in the mornings, but also in the late afternoon when Sophia arrived from school. The girl, curious and talkative, loved telling her school adventures to Uncle Wheelchair, as she initially called him. "Why don't you have children, Uncle Raphael?" Sophia asked one afternoon while drawing at the table next to him. The question, seemingly innocent, hit Raphael like a punch. Why indeed? He had been so busy accumulating wealth that he never prioritized starting a family. "I guess I never found the right person to be the mother of my children," he finally replied. "My mom hasn't found the right person either," Sophia said thoughtfully. "My dad left when I was a baby, but now it's just us two and it's okay." Conversations with Sophia were always revealing. Through her, Raphael learned more about Louisa, how she worked at the cafe during the day and did manicure services at night, how she dreamed of having her own beauty salon someday, how she had come from Charleston, South Carolina, fleeing an abusive relationship with Sophia's father. Gradually, Raphael began sharing small meals with them after Louisa's shift. These were simple moments, grilled bread, drip coffee, sometimes a piece of cake, but filled with genuine conversations and laughter. Sophia talked about her school, Louisa spoke about funny customers at the cafe, and Raphael increasingly felt comfortable being just Raphael, without the weight of the Nightingale surname. One evening, after Sophia fell asleep in a chair at the cafe, Louisa invited Raphael to dinner at her house. "It's nearby at the end of the street. Nothing special, but it's real food, not just coffee and bread." Louisa's residence was an apartment even smaller than his, a bedroom she shared with Sophia, a tiny living room, kitchen, and bathroom. But there were plants in every corner, Sophia's drawings on all the walls, and a care for every detail that transformed the cramped space into a true home. "Sorry for the simplicity," Louisa said as she prepared pasta with homemade sauce. "I'm not used to having visitors." "It's perfect," Raphael replied honestly. And it was. There was more warmth in that small space than his entire Malibu mansion had ever had. As they dined, with Sophia sleeping in the next room, conversation flowed with surprising naturalness. Louisa told him about her childhood in the South, how she got pregnant young and was abandoned, about the struggle to establish herself in Los Angeles. "And you?" she finally asked. "Your life before the accident." Raphael swallowed hard. What could he say? The truth was out of the question. "I worked in investments. I had a comfortable life, but I lost everything after the accident. Medical bills consumed my savings." "I'm sorry." Louisa placed her hand over his, a spontaneous gesture of solidarity. "Starting over is difficult, but not impossible." "Look at me." I arrived here with nothing, just a baby in my arms and a lot of determination. That hand on his, the warmth of that simple touch, made Raphael's heart race. When was the last time someone touched him without ulterior motives? Without wanting his money, his power, his connections? You're amazing, Louisa. Sophia is lucky to have you as a mother. She smiled, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. We're quite a team. But sometimes it's hard to do everything alone, you know. That night, returning to his apartment, Raphael realized something had changed within him. The experience that began as a test for his previous relationships was transforming into something deeper, a rediscovery of himself, of values he had forgotten, of connections that truly mattered. On his cell phone, he ignored messages from Dr. Augustus about new treatments and from Mrs. Zelda about the developments of his bankruptcy. Instead, he looked at photos Sophia had taken during dinner, he and Louisa smiling, without poses, without filters, just two adults sharing a genuine moment. For the first time in many years, Raphael slept without thinking about stocks, investments, or business deals. He only thought about Sophia's smile and Louisa's gentle touch on his hand. The days in the Los Angeles suburb acquired a pleasant routine that Raphael had never imagined appreciating. In the morning, he did physical therapy at home, following the guidelines Dr. Augustus discreetly sent him. In the afternoon, he went to the corner cafe where he spent hours talking with Louisa during her less busy moments and helping Sophia with her schoolwork. In the evening, he often dined at their small house or invited them to his apartment, where he surprisingly discovered he enjoyed cooking. The wheelchair, which he had initially used as a disguise, became less and less necessary. His muscles responded well and he could already take a few steps supported by crutches. He decided to incorporate this improvement into his narrative. He told Louisa and Sophia that the doctors were optimistic about his recovery. Their genuine joy at his progress deeply moved him. I told you you'd walk again. Sophia celebrated upon seeing him standing, supported by crutches. My drawing worked. She pointed to the drawing she had made weeks ago, where Raphael appeared standing, smiling, holding hands with her and her mother. His closeness with Louisa grew every day. Small gestures revealed a growing intimacy, a casual touch on the arm during a conversation, a prolonged gaze, a smile that said more than words. Raphael found himself thinking about her all day, recalling their conversations, anticipating their next meetings. One evening, after Sophia fell asleep watching a movie on Raphael's sofa, Louisa helped him wash the dinner dishes. The small kitchen space kept them close, their arms occasionally touching. You've changed my life, you know, Louisa said softly as she dried a plate. How so? Before you showed up at the cafe I just worked, took care of Sophia, slept and started all over again the next day. I didn't have space for anything else. She placed the plate in the cupboard and turned to him. Oh, you brought something new for both of us. Raphael felt his heart race. The guilt of the lie he maintained weighed more and more, but the fear of losing that connection paralyzed him. You two have also changed my life, he replied honestly. After the accident, I thought I had lost everything that mattered, but I found something much more valuable. Their gazes met for a long moment. Slowly, without planning, Raphael leaned towards her. Louisa did not pull away. Their lips touched in a soft, hesitant kiss that quickly deepened, releasing long-held feelings. When they pulled apart, Louisa had tears in her eyes. What's wrong? Raphael asked, concerned. Nothing, she smiled, wiping away a tear. It's just that I didn't expect to feel this again for someone. I'm scared. Scared of what? Of getting hurt. Of Sophia getting attached and suffering later. Of trusting and regretting it. Raphael took her hands in his. I would never do anything to hurt you two. I promise. The words came out sincere, but they carried the weight of the secret he kept. A secret that he knew could destroy everything they were building. In the following weeks, the relationship blossomed. Raphael began picking Sophia up from school, helping Louisa with bills, making small repairs to their house. To the world, they were a family in the making. It was on a rainy Wednesday that the first shadow fell over this happiness. Raphael was at the corner cafe, waiting for Sophia to get out of school, when a man abruptly entered, shaking his soaked umbrella. Tall, unshaven, and with restless eyes, He scanned the room until his gaze landed on Louisa, who was serving a table near the window. "Louisa!" The deep, harsh voice made the woman freeze instantly. The entire cafe seemed to fall into a tense silence. "Marcus," she replied, her voice low, her shoulders visibly tense. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see my niece. What else would it be?" The man approached, completely ignoring Louisa's uncomfortable expression. "My sister would be ashamed of how you disappeared, taking the girl without a word." "Your sister," Louisa began, but her voice failed. "Please, Marcus, not here, not now. I'm working." The man looked around, noticing the customers observing the scene. His gaze landed on Raphael, who was watching everything attentively. "And who are you? Another fool she found?" "Marcus!" Louisa exclaimed, horrified. Raphael maintained his composure, years of tense negotiations having forged his self-control. "I am a friend of Louisa and Sophia, and you are making everyone uncomfortable." Marcus laughed disdainfully. "Friend, is that what she calls it now?" He turned back to Louisa. "First it was that thug in Charleston, now it's this cripple. You really don't learn, do you?" "Enough!" Louisa's voice acquired surprising firmness. "Get out of here, Marcus. You have no right to show up after 3 years and make a scene." The cafe owner, an elderly gentleman who rarely interfered in any situation, approached. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to leave." Marcus looked at the three with barely contained anger. "This isn't over," he told Louisa. "I'm going to pick Sophia up from school. She deserves to know who her real family is." "Don't you dare!" Louisa advanced, but he was already leaving, letting the door slam shut behind him. Raphael immediately approached Louisa, who was trembling. "Who is he, really?" "My brother-in-law," she replied, her voice choked. "Sophia's father's brother. He found us." That afternoon, after closing the cafe early, Louisa told Raphael the whole story. How Marcus's brother, Roger, had been violent with her during her pregnancy. How she had fled to Los Angeles, fearing for her daughter's safety. How his family, influential in Charleston, had threatened to take custody of Sophia, alleging Louisa was unstable and irresponsible. "He's going to try to take Sophia," Louisa cried as she spoke. "They have money, they have connections. I'm just a single woman with 2 jobs and no resources." Raphael felt a cold anger grow within him. Throughout his life of privilege, he had never imagined what it was like to be on the other side, to be vulnerable before power and money. "You're not alone," he said, holding her hands. "I'm here, and I promise no one will take Sophia from you." The girl, fortunately at a friend's house during the incident, was shaken to learn that her uncle had appeared. "He's mean, Mommy. I don't want to go with him." In the following days, Marcus continued to appear, sometimes at the school gate, sometimes at the cafe, always with a false smile for Sophia and veiled threats for Louisa. "I'm in contact with my lawyers. Her single mother without resources, living in a shack, leaving the girl with strangers. The judge will love to hear that." Raphael watched helplessly, torn between the desire to use his real resources to help and the fear of revealing his true identity. As Raphael Stone, he was just another poor man without power. As Raphael Nightingale, he could hire the best lawyers, bribe whoever was necessary, resolve that situation with a few phone calls. But revealing himself would mean losing Louisa and Sophia's trust. The situation reached a critical point when Marcus appeared with a man in a suit who introduced himself as a lawyer. "We are moving forward with a custody case for Sophia," he formally announced. "We understand that Ms. Spencer does not have adequate parenting conditions, nor emotional stability, as evidenced by her successive and inappropriate relationships." Louisa broke down in tears as soon as they left. "They're going to take my daughter, Raphael. They're going to take my Sophia." That night, after calming Louisa and putting Sophia to bed, Raphael made a call he had been postponing. "Dr. Augustus, I need your help, urgently." The next morning, while Louisa was at work and Sophia was at school, Raphael had a discreet meeting with Dr. Augustus in his apartment. "What are you planning, Raphael?" asked the doctor, visibly concerned by his friend's tense expression. "I need to help Louisa, but I can't reveal who I am." "Not yet. This has become more complex than we imagined, hasn't it?" Dr. Augustus observed him carefully. "You've fallen in love with her." Raphael didn't answer immediately, looking out the window at the street movement. "I need you to hire a top-tier lawyer. discreetly. For him to represent Louisa in this custody case but without ever mentioning my name. Say it's a free legal aid program or something similar. Dr. Augustus sighed. This lie is getting bigger and bigger, Raphael. At some point the truth will come out. I know. And I'll tell her everything. But first I need to make sure she doesn't lose her daughter. What Raphael didn't know was that, at that exact moment a few miles away, an investigative journalist was publishing an online article with the title, "The Mystery of the Missing Billionaire. Where is Raphael Nightingale?" The article spread quickly, shared in WhatsApp groups, discussed on television programs, commented on in conversations. The mystery of the missing billionaire brought a detailed investigation into the last months of Raphael Nightingale's life, questioning the official narrative that he was reclusive after the accident. The journalist James Miller presented evidence of inconsistencies, hospital records that did not match the alleged severity of the injuries, suspicious financial movements before the company's collapse, and, at most alarmingly, witnesses who claimed to have seen someone very similar to the billionaire walking normally in Los Angeles. Exclusive sources suggest that the businessman may be hiding, faking financial and health problems for unknown reasons, said a passage in the report. Raphael learned about the article through Mrs. Zelda, who called him in a panic. "Mr. Raphael, they're investigating you. People are looking everywhere. Dr. Augustus has already been approached by reporters outside his office." The news hit him like a blow. His plan, which seemed so solid, was now disintegrating. It was only a matter of time until he was discovered. Until Louisa discovered. For 3 days, Raphael avoided the corner cafe, claiming a health relapse. He stayed in his apartment, trying to find a way to tell Louisa the truth before she found out from other sources. But how to explain such an elaborate lie? How to make her understand that despite the charade, his feelings were genuine? On the afternoon of the 3rd day, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole he saw Louisa standing in the hallway, her face marked by an expression that mixed concern and determination. "Raphael, I know you're in there. We need to talk." Her voice sounded different, distant. He opened the door, still leaning on one of his crutches. "Louisa, I was going to look for you today." She entered silently, observing the apartment with new eyes. She seemed to be looking for clues, evidence of who he really was. "Is Sophia okay?" Raphael asked, trying to break the ice. "She's with a neighbor." Louisa finally faced him. "Who are you, Raphael?" Really, the moment he had so feared had arrived. "Please sit down. I need to tell you everything." For the next hour, Raphael revealed the complete truth, who he really was, the accident, the painful realization that no one cared about him beyond his money, the disappearance plan, the wheelchair charade. "In the beginning, it was just an experiment," he explained, his voice choked. "I wanted to see who would stand by my side when I had nothing left. And the answer was no one. No one from my old world." Louisa listened in silence, her face impenetrable. "Then I met you and Sophia, and everything changed. For the first time in years, I felt something real. I met people who saw me for who I am, not for my bank account." "You lied to us," Louisa finally said, her voice low but firm. "All this time." "Yes," Raphael admitted, "and I deeply regret it. But my feelings for you two have always been true. They are the most honest part of my life." Louisa stood up abruptly. "Do you have any idea what you've done? I let you into our lives. I trusted you. I let Sophia get attached. All based on a lie." "Louisa, please, no!" She raised her hand, interrupting him. "You're a billionaire, Raphael. A billionaire! And you pretended to be poor, pretended to need help, pretended everything. Meanwhile, I'm about to lose my daughter because I don't have money for a decent lawyer. You played at being poor while I fight daily to survive." The words hit Raphael like daggers. The magnitude of his insensitivity was revealed through Louisa's hurt eyes. "I was about to help you with the custody case," he tried to explain. "I've already hired a lawyer. I don't want your charity." Tears streamed down Louisa's face now. "I don't want to be another one of your projects, another social experiment for the bored billionaire. It's not that, Louisa. I love you. I love Sophia." "Love?" She laughed bitterly. "Love isn't built on lies, Raphael, or whatever your real name is." With those words, she headed for the door. Raphael tried to follow her, but she turned, her face a mask of determination through her tears. "Don't follow me. Don't look for us. We've had enough men in our lives disappointing us. The door slammed shut, leaving Raphael alone with the magnitude of his mistake. He slumped onto the sofa, the emotional pain surpassing any physical pain he had ever felt. How could he have been so blind, so insensitive? In the days that followed, Raphael desperately tried to contact Louisa. Calls, messages, visits to the cafe, all in vain. She had disappeared. The owner of the establishment only informed him that she had resigned without saying where she was going. Sophia had also disappeared from school. No one knew, or no one wanted to say, where mother and daughter had gone. Meanwhile, the story of the billionaire who faked bankruptcy made headlines. Journalists camped outside his apartment in Queens. His brother Edward gave indignant interviews about how he had been deceived. Camilla, his ex-fiancée, appeared on television shows crying about how she always knew something was wrong. The world Raphael had so carefully built was crumbling around him. He had lost everything, not the money or status which were still there, untouched, but the only thing he had discovered truly mattered, the genuine love of Louisa and Sophia. It was Dr. Augustus who convinced him to leave Queens. You need to reorganize yourself, Raphael. Face the consequences of your actions, rebuild your life. With a heavy heart, Raphael returned to his penthouse in Malibu. The luxury that was once his natural habitat now seemed empty, devoid of meaning. The first nights were of absolute insomnia, recalling every moment with Louisa and Sophia, every lost opportunity to tell the truth. His story became a topic of debate about ethics, privilege, and social inequality. Psychologists analyzed his motivations, sociologists discussed the experiment, economists speculated about the impact on his businesses. Raphael ignored all of it. His only concern was to find Louisa and Sophia, explain himself properly, try to repair the damage caused. He hired private investigators, offered rewards, scoured records. The only concrete information came from a colleague at the salon where Louisa worked at night. She mentioned something about going back to the countryside, to her hometown. Charleston, South Carolina. It was a clue. Raphael immediately mobilized resources to look for them there. But the city was big, and Louisa clearly didn't want to be found. A month passed without news. Raphael had regained control of his companies, debunked the bankruptcy rumors, and officially returned to public life. But behind the scenes, his tireless search continued. It was then that he received an unexpected call from an unknown number. Mr. Nightingale, this is Paul Mason, family lawyer. I represent Ms. Louisa Spencer in the custody case of minor Sophia Spencer. Raphael's heart raced. How is she? Where are they? I am not authorized to disclose that information, the lawyer replied dryly. I'm contacting you because Marcus Rivers, the minor's paternal uncle, has secured a preliminary hearing to discuss custody. Ms. Spencer is in a vulnerable situation, without adequate resources for defense. I'll do whatever it takes, Raphael said immediately. Hire the best specialists, don't worry about costs. You don't understand, the lawyer interrupted. Ms. Spencer doesn't want your money. In fact, she explicitly forbade any financial help from you. Then why are you calling me? There was a pause. Because I've known Ms. Spencer for many years, since Charleston. She's too proud to ask for help, but she loves that girl more than anything. And I saw what that Marcus did to his sister, his mother. I cannot allow Sophia to go to that family. Raphael felt a glimmer of hope. What can I do? Testify. You know the family dynamic. You saw the relationship between mother and daughter. Your word as a respected public figure could carry weight. When is the hearing? Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Savannah County Courthouse, room 302. Raphael didn't hesitate. I'll be there. The next morning, he boarded the first flight to Charleston. He arrived at the courthouse an hour early, more nervous than he had ever been in any billion-dollar negotiation. It was then that he saw her, sitting on a bench in the hallway. Louisa looked thinner, with deep dark circles under her eyes, her hair tied in a simple bun. Beside her, Sophia was drawing distractedly in a notebook. Raphael's heart stopped for an instant. Gathering all his courage, he approached. Sophia was the first to notice him. Uncle Raphael. The girl jumped up, running towards him, hugging his legs. You're not in a wheelchair anymore. Louisa looked up, surprised. Her gaze met Raphael's, a complex mix of emotions passing across her face. What are you doing here? she asked, her voice controlled. Your lawyer called me. I came to testify on your behalf. Raphael knelt down to Sophia's height. Hi, Princess. I missed you so much. Me too, Sophia smiled. Mommy said we needed a vacation, but I didn't like it. I wanted to say goodbye. Raphael looked at Louisa, who kept her face turned away. Can we talk? Just 5 minutes. She hesitated, then sighed. Sophia, stay here drawing. I'll be right back. They walked a few steps away, stopping near a window that overlooked the courthouse parking lot. You disappeared, Raphael began. I needed to think. Away from you, away from the lies. And have you come to any conclusion? Louisa finally faced him. Yes, that I was naive to believe someone like you could really be interested in someone like me. Louisa, let me finish. I thought a lot about everything, about how we met, about how you came into our lives. I relived every moment, every conversation, trying to identify which parts were real and which were an act. Raphael swallowed hard. Everything I feel for you is real. The only lie was about who I was before. She shook her head. How can I believe? How can I trust? I'm not asking you to believe now. Just give me a chance to prove it. He took a deep breath. I came here to help with Sophia's case. Afterward, if you want me to disappear from your lives forever, I will respect your decision. Before Louisa could answer, a harsh voice sounded behind them. Well, if it isn't the unnatural mother and her new rich protector. Marcus approached, accompanied by a woman in a suit with a severe expression, his lawyer, presumably. Now I understand everything. You disappeared from Charleston to become a billionaire's mistress. Impressive, Louisa. Raphael felt his blood boil but maintained his composure. I suggest you show respect when speaking to your niece's mother. Marcus laughed. Respect? For a woman who abandons her family, who exposes her child to strangers, who lives from relationship to relationship. The judge will love to hear about your new millionaire boyfriend. It will prove exactly what we are alleging, your instability. Louisa paled. Raphael realized the devastating effect of those words. His presence there, instead of helping, could harm her case. As he processed this realization, a court officer appeared announcing the start of the hearing. Room 302, custody case Spencer versus Rivers. The crucial moment had arrived. Raphael looked at Louisa, who seemed about to collapse, and then at Sophia, innocently focused on her drawings. With a sudden decision, he touched Louisa's arm. Trust me. Just this once. Room 302 of the Savannah County Courthouse was small and formal, with the air conditioning blowing a cold wind that contrasted with the humid heat of the South. The judge, Dr. Claudia Vance, a middle-aged black woman with a piercing gaze, observed those present attentively as she organized the documents in front of her. This is a preliminary proceeding for the discussion of the custody of minor Sophia Spencer Rivers, she announced, adjusting her glasses. We will first hear the petitioner's attorney. Marcus's lawyer, Dr. Teresa Mendonza, rose confidently. Dressed in an impeccable suit and with her hair tied in a perfect bun, she exuded the authority of someone accustomed to winning. For 20 minutes she presented carefully prepared arguments. Louisa's emotional instability, her financial precariousness, the lack of adequate family structure. She presented photos of the small apartment where Louisa and Sophia lived, comparing them with images of Marcus's spacious house in an upscale neighborhood of Charleston. As you can see, Your Honor, she said, projecting the images, the minor shares a tiny room with her mother. While in my client's residence, she would have her own room, space to play, and access to one of the best private schools in the city. She mentioned questionable influences in the child's life, looking significantly at Raphael. The association with Mr. Nightingale, a man publicly known for lying about his identity and condition, only confirms the pattern of instability in the respondents' relationships. Louisa clasped her hands so tightly that her knuckles were white. Raphael, sitting right behind her, could feel her tension and fear. Every word from the lawyer was like a blow, methodically deconstructing the simple but dignified life Louisa had built for her daughter. When Paul Mason, Louisa's lawyer, rose to speak, his presentation was passionate but less technical. An older man with graying hair and kind eyes, he spoke about maternal love, about how Louisa always prioritized her daughter above all else, about the sacrifices she made to ensure her well-being. "Your Honor," he said, with an emotional voice, "my client fled Charleston not out of caprice but out of fear. I have here," and he presented an envelope, "records of complaints filed at the women's shelter, made by Louisa against Roger Rivers, Sophia's father and the petitioner's brother, for threats and domestic violence." A murmur ran through the room. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Miss Spencer feared not only for herself, but primarily for her daughter's safety, and despite financial difficulties, she never allowed the child to lack anything, not materially and certainly not emotionally. But without resources for investigations or specialized reports, his defense seemed more emotional than substantive in the face of the graphs, reports, and photographs presented by the other party. The judge maintained a neutral expression, taking occasional notes. "I would like to hear from Mr. Nightingale now. I understand that you will testify on behalf of the respondent." Raphael stood up, feeling all eyes on him. For a brief moment, he saw himself back in the boardrooms where he closed multi-million-dollar deals. But now what was at stake was infinitely more valuable. "Your Honor," he began, "I initially intended to testify about Louisa Spencer's exemplary character as a mother, about the healthy and loving environment she provides for Sophia, about the strong bond between the two." He paused, looking at Louisa, who watched him with apprehension. "However, after hearing the arguments, I realize that my presence here may be interpreted in a distorted way. Therefore, if you will allow me, I would like to clarify a few points." The judge nodded, intrigued. "I met Louisa and Sophia during a period when I was seeking to understand the true value of human relationships. After a serious accident, I realized that the people around me, family, friends, partners, were only interested in my money, not in me as a person." Raphael took a deep breath, organizing his thoughts. "I then decided to conduct an experiment, to pretend I had lost everything. As expected, everyone abandoned me. That's when I met Louisa and Sophia, two people who welcomed me without knowing who I was, without interest in my social or financial position, who offered me kindness when I had nothing to give in return." The room remained in absolute silence. Even Marcus seemed surprised by the frankness of the testimony. "For months I observed how Louisa works tirelessly to provide the best for her daughter. How even exhausted after double shifts, she always has time to help Sophia with homework, to read stories, to listen about her day. I saw a mother who sacrifices personal comforts to ensure her daughter has everything she needs." Raphael looked directly at the judge, his voice acquiring a palpable intensity. "I saw Sophia blossom under her mother's care. The happy, well-mannered, creative, self-assured child, qualities that do not develop in environments of neglect or emotional instability. I witnessed Louisa teaching values of honesty, hard work and respect for others, not with words, but with daily examples." Louisa had tears in her eyes now, but remained silent. "Your Honor, family stability is not measured by bank balance or residence size. If that were the case, many of us here would not be qualified to raise a child, including myself, who grew up in a mansion full of servants and empty of affection." The judge observed with increasing interest. The lawyer mentioned questionable influences. "If she is referring to me, I must clarify, yes, I lied about who I was. I made a mistake out of insecurity, out of fear of being valued again only for what I possess, not for what I am." But Louisa did not know that, and when she discovered the truth, her reaction was one of indignation and withdrawal, precisely demonstrating her integrity and solid values. Raphael looked directly at Marcus now. "As for the allegations about structured family, I ask, what exactly constitutes this structure? Would it be an uncle who appears after years of absence, driven not by love for his niece but by resentment against her mother? Or would it be a single mother who daily builds an environment of love, respect, and ethical values?" Marcus's lawyer rose to object, but the judge gestured for her to wait. "Your Honor, I'm not here to judge Mr. Rivers' intentions, but I personally observed his interactions with Sophia. Instead of a gradual and respectful approach, I saw intimidation. Instead of genuine interest in her well-being, I saw the girl being used as an instrument in an adult dispute." Marcus stood up, his face red with indignation, but a stern look from the judge made him sit down again. "Finally, regarding financial resources," Raphael continued, I agree that every child deserves material comfort and educational opportunities, and that is why I would like to register before this court that I am establishing an educational fund for Sophia Spencer, administered by an independent trustee, exclusively for her future academic education. A murmur ran through the room. Louisa's expression was indefinable. This fund is not conditioned on any personal relationship between me and Louisa. It is simply the recognition of a debt I owe to a child who taught me more about authenticity and affection than all the adults I met in my privileged life. Raphael turned to the judge. Your Honor, I have the resources to provide Sophia with international travel, expensive schools, designer clothes. But no amount of money could buy what Louisa naturally gives her daughter every day: unconditional love, examples of dignity and perseverance, solid moral values. This, Your Honor, is the true adequate family structure that any child needs. When he finished, the room remained in silence. The judge observed him with a thoughtful expression. After a few moments, she adjusted her glasses and made some notes. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Nightingale. The judge removed her glasses, briefly rubbing her eyes. I would like to hear from Sophia now in my chambers, without the presence of the adults involved. An officer escorted the girl, who was waiting outside, into the judge's chambers. The 30 minutes that followed were the longest in Louisa and Raphael's lives, who remained seated side by side without exchanging a word, but sharing the same anxiety. When Sophia returned, she was smiling, holding a lollipop that the judge had probably given her. The officer took her to wait outside again, while Dr. Claudia resumed her seat. Considering the elements presented so far, the minor's testimony, and the complexity of the case, I order a complete psychosocial study before the final decision. However, I maintain provisional custody with the mother, Ms. Louisa Spencer. A collective sigh of relief escaped Louisa and her lawyer. Marcus, on the other hand, stood up furiously. This is absurd. She'll run away again. She'll disappear with the girl. Everyone here is being manipulated by a woman who abandoned her family and by a millionaire who lies compulsively. Mr. Rivers, the judge's voice acquired a remarkable harshness. Your behavior in this hearing does not speak in your favor. I suggest restraint. And to ensure that no one disappears, I order both parties to surrender their passports to the court clerk until the conclusion of the process. The judge struck her gavel. I further order that the petitioner maintain a minimum distance of 100 yards from Ms. Spencer and her daughter, except during supervised visits that will be scheduled by Child Protective Services. With that, she adjourned the session. In the courthouse hallway, Sophia ran to hug her mother, oblivious to the tension of the moment. Are we going home, Mommy? That lady gave me a lollipop and said I'm very smart. Louisa hugged her tightly, tears finally escaping. Yes, dear, we're going home. Raphael kept his distance, not wanting to pressure her. His testimony had been sincere, but he knew the wounds caused by his lie were deep. He was about to walk away when Louisa approached, still holding Sophia's hand. Thank you, she said simply, her voice low. For what you did today, it was the least I could do. An uncomfortable silence hung between them. Sophia looked from one to the other, confused by the tension. Uncle Raphael, are you going to visit us at home? I have new drawings to show you. I made one of you without the wheelchair, because the lady at the courthouse asked me how I wanted you to be, and I said walking because then you can play ball with me. Louisa and Raphael exchanged glances. Sophia, Uncle Raphael is a very busy person, Louisa began. Actually, Raphael interrupted, I'd love to see your drawings, Sophia, but that depends on your mother. Louisa seemed to be fighting an internal battle. Finally, she took a deep breath. We can have coffee to talk. Just that. It was more than Raphael expected. Just that, he agreed. 3 days later, they met at a small coffee shop in the historic downtown of Savannah, while Sophia was at school. The place, with its wooden tables and simple decor, reminded them of the corner cafe where they had met. From the window, they could see the turquoise sea and the colorful colonial houses that made the city a postcard of the South. Why did you do that? Louisa asked as soon as they sat down. The fund for Sophia. Because she deserves it, and because I truly believe everything I said in that courtroom. Louisa studied his face, as if looking for signs of falseness. You know, when I found out who you really were, I felt so Stupid, as if all that time had just been a game for you. Never was a game, Louisa. It started as a search for authenticity and became the most real thing I've ever lived. She sighed, idly stirring her coffee. It's hard to believe. A billionaire pretending to be poor, living in Queens. It sounds like a soap opera plot. Raphael smiled sadly. The most absurd part is that I was never happier than in that small apartment with you two. And now? Back to your mansion, your jets, your companies. I've returned to my responsibilities, but I've discovered that I don't need that life to be who I am. Louisa observed him with curiosity. What do you mean? I'm restructuring everything. Transforming my companies into corporations with social purpose, creating foundations, scholarship programs, using my resources for something meaningful, not just to accumulate more zeros in my bank account. Why? Because you and Sophia taught me what truly matters. Raphael hesitated, then decided to risk it. And because I want to be the man you thought I was. That Raphael Stone who sat at the corner cafe and genuinely cared about people, not what they could offer. The silence that followed was long, but less tense than before. Do you know what Sophia told the judge? Louisa finally asked, a slight smile on her lips. She said you were the only adult besides me who really listened to her, who asked questions about what she thought and felt, not just about school or grades. Raphael felt a lump in his throat. She's an extraordinary child. She is. Louisa took a sip of coffee. When I arrived in Los Angeles, I was broken inside. Years of humiliation, of fear. I built towering walls around myself and Sophia. And somehow you managed to cross them. And then I tore them down myself with my lies. Louisa looked directly at him. I need time, Raphael. It's not easy to trust again. I understand. And I will respect the time you need. In the following months, Raphael kept his word. He returned to Los Angeles, dedicating himself to transforming his companies, but visited Savannah regularly to see Sophia, always with Louisa's permission, always respecting the established boundaries. On one of these visits, he took Sophia to the Getty Center, a museum with an immense collection of European art, completely out of place in tropical Los Angeles, almost as out of place as he himself felt in this new life. Why don't you live here? Sophia asked as they looked at a Dutch painting together. Mommy is less mad at you now. Raphael smiled at the girl's perceptiveness. It's complicated, Sophia. Your mother and I need to sort some things out between us. You like each other, she stated with a child's certainty. And I like you too. We could be a family, couldn't we? Maybe someday, he replied, his heart aching. But for now, let's enjoy our day at the museum, okay? On another occasion, after a visit to the Getty Center, Raphael showed Sophia his new project, an educational foundation that offered scholarships and vocational training for young people from disadvantaged communities in Charleston. You're the one who inspired me, he explained to Sophia as they visited the newly inaugurated space. I thought about how many intelligent girls like you don't have the same opportunities. The custody case was finally dismissed when Marcus, after the psychosocial study revealed his true intentions, which included selling the house Sophia would inherit from her father, dropped the lawsuit. Confronted with the evidence of his purely financial interest, he ended up confessing that he had never truly cared about his niece's well-being. Louisa, with the help of Sophia's educational fund, managed to enroll her daughter in a better school and rent a more comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood of Savannah. With the guidance of Paul Mason, now a family friend, and a small initial investment from Raphael, accepted after much resistance, she opened her own small beauty salon, realizing her dream of being an entrepreneur. Raphael, in turn, divided his time between Los Angeles and Savannah. He rented a simple apartment in the city, not much different from the one he had in Queens. He reorganized his businesses to be able to work remotely much of the time. His companies, now with new social purposes, performed better than ever, to the surprise of his executives who feared that the boss's philanthropic phase would affect profits. 6 months after the hearing, on a sunny Sunday afternoon, Raphael received an unexpected call. Sophia is asking if you'd like to come for lunch, Louisa said, her voice softer than in previous conversations. We made that feijoada you said you liked. I'd love to, Raphael replied, his heart quickening. During lunch, Sophia monopolized the conversation, excitedly talking about her new school, her friends, her art projects. Raphael listened to her with genuine interest, marveling at how much she had grown in such a short time. After the girl went out to play in the small but well-maintained backyard, Louisa and Raphael were left alone on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky orange. "She misses you," Louisa said softly. "She asks about you every day. I miss her too. Both of you." Louisa turned to face him. "I still have moments when I don't know if I can trust. Therefore, this is real," Raphael nodded. "It's understandable. I broke that trust. But then," she continued, "I see how consistent you've been these past months, how you respect my boundaries, how genuinely you care about Sophia." She paused. "And how everything you said in that courtroom proved true in your actions." Raphael's heart raced. "What are you saying, Louisa?" "I'm saying that maybe we can try again, start from scratch. Get to know each other for real, without lies or pretenses." Raphael felt an emotion that no business acquisition had ever provided. "I would really like that. It won't be easy," Louisa warned. "Our worlds are very different." "They were," Raphael corrected. "Now I'm discovering that what truly matters is the same for everyone. True connection, purpose, love." At that moment, Sophia ran back, a new drawing in her hands. "Look what I made!" she exclaimed, holding out the colorful paper. The drawing showed 3 figures holding hands, a woman with curly hair, a smiling girl, and a tall man, no wheelchair. Above them, a large red heart enveloped the scene, and below it was written in childlike handwriting, "My family." Louisa and Raphael exchanged an emotional glance. Perhaps Sophia, in her childlike wisdom, managed to see something that adults took longer to perceive, that families come in all shapes and sizes, that mistakes can be forgiven, and that new beginnings are possible when true love is involved. Gradually, their relationship flourished again, stronger because it was now based on truth and mutual respect. Raphael proposed creating a routine that respected Louisa's independence and her rising career. She, in turn, showed herself open to getting to know his world, occasionally visiting Los Angeles and meeting the people who were part of Raphael's life, now very different from those who surrounded him before. Mrs. Zelda, the housekeeper who had always been loyal to Raphael, developed an immediate friendship with Louisa, teaching her southern recipes and stories from her boss's childhood. Dr. Augustus, impressed by his patient's transformation, began supporting community health projects created by Raphael's foundation. A year later, in a simple ceremony by the sea in Savannah, with only close friends present, Louisa and Raphael got married. Sophia, radiant in a light blue dress, carried the rings with pride. "Are you sure?" Raphael asked Louisa moments before the ceremony began. "I can wait longer if you need to." Louisa smiled, touching his face with tenderness. "I'm sure, not because you're Raphael Nightingale, the billionaire, but because you're Raphael, the man I met at the corner cafe, the man my daughter adores, the man who taught me that I can trust again." The wedding was not reported in society columns, had no celebrities or politicians. It was an intimate, genuine celebration, like the relationship they had built. They decided to live in a house in Savannah near Louisa's salon. It wasn't a mansion, but it had enough space for everyone, a garden where Sophia could play and an ocean view that filled the living room with light in the morning. Raphael kept a home office, from where he coordinated his businesses and social projects. Louisa expanded her salon, hiring young people from local communities and offering vocational courses. Raphael Nightingale, the man who once faked losing everything to discover what truly mattered, had found the greatest possible wealth, genuine love that accepted him exactly as he was, with his flaws and virtues, and every Sunday morning, the 3 of them would return to a simple coffee shop near their home, not as luxurious as his old restaurants in Malibu, nor as modest as the corner cafe in Queens, but perfect for them. Sophia always ordered carrot cake with chocolate. Louisa and Raphael always shared a coffee, and together they celebrated the greatest lesson they had learned. True fortune is not in the bank balance, but in having someone who holds your hand when the rest of the world turns its back on you. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope Raphael, Louisa, and Sophia's story has touched your hearts. To continue experiencing emotions like this, We have a special playlist with other narratives that explore the complexities of human relationships and the second chances life offers us. Find it by clicking here. If this journey of discovery and redemption moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Every day we bring unique stories that make us reflect on what truly matters in life. Share in the comments which moment of this story touched your heart the most, and if you have ever lived a situation where you had to choose between love and pride. So until the next story.